What's up, everyone? Professor Leis here. So, I've been getting some questions from some of you regarding this activity structure after the fact. And so, I want to make sure that we're all clear on what this is. So, going through has been reading some of the responses so far, and yeah, it's clear I need to explain this a little bit more, which is fine. So, sit tight. Let's go ahead and go through this. So, this activity comes from a book called Habits of the Creative Mind by Richard E. Miller and Ann Jurecic. This is a book I use in my first year composition courses, so English 1 or 100. And this activity, though, is very applicable to all essay writing. So that's why we're taking this activity and adapting it for our purposes here, because what we're doing right now, we're trying to figure out a little bit more concretely the structure that we're taking in our essay projects. And so we've already written a draft, which is great. Now we can begin to take the ideas that we already have in that draft and then also think about the ideas that we're planning on adding into our next draft and see how we can structure that. So here's some context, a little bit of background information. So this is a direct quote from the book, so let me go ahead and read it. Richard E. Miller and Ann Jurecic write, "In school, the operating assumption is often that there is one structure with which students should work: introduction, body, conclusion. Note that this approach begins by prescribing an organizing structure, no matter what the subject or project is, where professional writers show structure emerging after the research process is finished or well underway. We think that the best time for you to make decisions about structure is after you've formulated the question you want to answer, the problem or puzzle you want to solve, or the idea you want to explore, and after you've taken time to do substantial research. Once you've gathered your materials, then you can experiment with how to organize it for your readers." So the activity itself is right here. So let me go ahead and walk us through this. So this is still quoting from the book here. "Get a set of index cards and make a card for every section or paragraph of your project, those you've already written and those you are planning to write in order to finish the project. Set the cards out on a flat surface and then organize them so that they represent the structure you think best suits your project. When you've mapped out a structure you think works, take a step back and think carefully about what you see." Okay, so let me pause for a second. So you don't need to use index cards. You could use post-it notes or cut out pieces of paper if you don't have index cards. So anything will do, but you want to make sure that you have one index card or piece of paper for each section or paragraph of your essay that you've already written, and then also what you plan to write. So in your next draft, what you're imagining you need to cover next in that draft. Okay, so you'll have all of those sections written out on cards so that you can shuffle those cards up and then you can put them on a flat surface, so your table or a desk or a bed, where you can lay them out and arrange them according to how you've already structured the points that you already have in your draft, but then also what you plan to write. And so once you determine a structure that you think best suits your essay, what you think will work the best, then you're going to sit down and respond to these questions to think a little bit more about your essay's organization and the structure of it. Okay, so it's really important that you actually write these responses out. Don't just imagine your responses in your head, because when we are forced to sit down and write them out, we're forced to actually think more concretely about them and to really interrogate those ideas and try to understand them better. So it's important that you write this out just in a notebook, and then that will lead to the report that you're going to post on here. So first question, what shape is the path? Is it straight and simple because you're writing a descriptive essay? There's this and that and the other thing. Given the assignment or your ambitions, is this structure sufficient? So if you think that maybe that kind of straightforward linear organization maybe isn't the best way to organize, then you can mix it up a little bit. You can play around with the structure. And again, that's why it's important to have these on index cards or pieces of paper or post-it notes so you can move them around. Does the path of your project take interesting turns? Is there a step that takes your thoughts in a new direction? Are there turns that might pivot on a qualifying word or phrase such as but, however, or on the other hand? So this is asking you to examine if there are any points in your essay where maybe you've been exploring an idea, but then you propose something that might contradict that idea, and so you're like, but what if we think about it this other way, or on the other hand, or however, and then it kind of shifts directions. So looking at that, do you do that at all in the structure that you've laid out for yourself in the cards? Does the path turn more than once? Does it double back on itself? Does it have a lowercase e structure? Does it braid 3 or more strands together? So just a note about this, so the lowercase e, if we look at the shape of a lowercase e, it starts at a point in the middle and it kind of circles around. Essentially what this means is if we have a couple of different aspects of our essay, and in this case we might, right? So we're examining a particular organization or group, and then we're analyzing a shared value that the members of that group have in common, and then we're examining how the activities and the things that that group engages in demonstrates that value. You can think those are kind of 3 different strands that you could then kind of jump back and forth to, right? You don't need to just talk about all about one thing first and then all about the next thing, after that, and then the third thing third. You can mix them together a little bit, play around with it. So look at that. Do you do that at all in your essay? Is there a fork in the path? Is there a moment where you entertain multiple options? So in some cases, there might be instances where it's like, it could be this or it could be that. And if you explore both of those options, then you're creating a sort of fork in the path of your essay structure, right? Do you do that at all? If not, it's okay, but you want to pay attention to those things. Are there gaps? Does the path abruptly change direction or miss a step between a given section and the one that follows? So this is something that will help you determine if maybe you need to explain a point a little bit further, or maybe you need to build a bridge between one idea and the one that follows. If you're looking at the way you've laid out your cards and you're like, wait a second, how do I get from that point to this other one? That might be an instance where you need to pay closer attention as you're continuing on in your next draft, right? Are there Oh, I'm sorry, that's a typo there. I'll fix that after I finish this video. Are there pieces or ideas that don't fit anywhere? Does it make sense to include such material as a digression that eventually leads back to the main path? Would a digression contribute to the essay's overall project? So digressions are not always a bad thing, as long as they circle back to the main point of your essay, right? Sometimes the digression can be very helpful because it will help explain an idea, and then you can see the broader context of something. So if you veer from the main path of your essay on a sort of a digression, just make sure that that digression returns to the main path at a certain point, right? So you want to pay attention to that. Do you do that at all? Is there a dead end, a place where the path hits a brick wall or goes off a cliff? If so, can you use this dead end to rethink how you've addressed your essay's question or problem? So sometimes if we hit a brick wall, that could be an instance where maybe we've run out of things to say, or maybe we need to rethink the way that we've organized our essays. So if you mess around with the structure a little bit, you might find that that brick wall no longer is a dead end, because now you have something to put after it, because you've rearranged the sections of your essay a little bit. So it's not always a bad thing, but it's something you want to pay attention to. So once you've answered these questions, you've laid out the organization of your essay using those index cards or pieces of paper, you're going to take a picture of that. Okay, so using your phone or some sort of camera, you're going to take a picture of that, and then you're going to include that photo in your post. Okay, so the post that you put to the discussion board, you want to include the photo of your index cards. And then you're going to write a report about what you've learned from looking at the organization of your project in this way. You may want to number key places in your diagram to help your readers follow your observations. So now here's done with the quoting of the book, and now here's me. Your post for this discussion will be your report, which should be at least 150 words in length. Once you've posted your report, respond to at least 2 colleagues' posts. What questions or observations do you have for your colleagues? Can you offer them any advice or feedback? Just a note, your initial response should be posted by midnight on Wednesday. However, the responses to your colleagues can be posted anytime after, or I'm sorry, anytime before Sunday by midnight. So your initial post should be by the Wednesday deadline, but in the days after, that's when you can go back and respond to your colleagues. That's okay. So again, you're going to need to include a picture of your index cards that outline the structure from the points that you've already covered in your first draft, and then the points that you plan to include in your next draft. Okay, so you're kind of imagining the overall structure of what you already have written and what you need to write of the essay as a whole. Okay, so you need to post a picture of that, and then again, your report is going to be addressing this section here, what you've learned from this organization by looking at these questions. Okay, so that's why it's important that in your notebook you respond to these questions so that you can use that material to help you with your report. Okay, so if you have any questions about this, let me know. I'm happy to talk with you about it further, or you can message me on Canvas, and we'll go from there. All right, y'all, have fun.